Hij begint weer.
Hey folks, I hope you enjoyed the first hour. I did. Ulrich, by the way, is a great potential for the future. He's got a great deal of enthusiasm. If I appeared overbearing, it was his first interview, and I think he came out well. That's what I think. Now, right now, David Livingstone, you did not send me your profile bio, and I bugged you and you didn't do it. So please introduce yourself.
Okay. I sent it today. I guess somehow I didn't get through. Sorry about that.
So I shut down at a certain time. So go to it.
So my name is David Livingstone.
Voor mij is het klaar.
And
is guest one still on?
Heel het toekomst, want ik ben heel enthousiast.
Well, then if
Dat zei hij net.
David is our next guest. If you want to stick around just for fun, but he gets to stay.
Sorry?
All right, David, I'm doing my best for you.
Ja, hij heeft mijn show heeft hij ik moet mijn YouTube
I go ahead and introduce myself then?
Er komen wel meer mensen op nu.
You know what? I've got to do this. I've got to say goodbye to guest one. Ulrich.
Okay.
I hope I did it. All right, go ahead. Introduce yourself.
My name is David Livingstone. I am born and raised in Canada. I converted to Islam.
Were you really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I was also born and raised there. I don't suppose you were anywhere near Manitoba.
No, I grew up in Montreal.
Oh, si tu parles lentement, no, we won't do that. All right, I gotcha.
Yeah, so I started studying. I started doing serious research, independent research. Actually, when I was in university, but I started taking a tangent on my own, which is about 25 years ago. I've been studying ever since. I've now written 4 books. The first is The Dying God, The Hidden History of Western Civilization, which covers basically the history of the occult from its very early beginnings, from the ancient Middle East, Babylon, until the French Revolution.
Send it to me. I don't have that. Send it to me. There's potential there.
Okay.
Next book?
Terrorism and Illuminati. So that basically takes off where the last one ends. I didn't know at the time that that's the tangent I would end up in. Because
you know what? I don't have your first 2 books. I start with your third and fourth. So if you send me your first and second, we have a future together.
Okay. I'll do that gladly. So Terrorism and Illuminati basically explores, I call it a 3,000 history because modern terrorism is an offshoot of Western intelligence, but it's also an attempt to revive what is thought to be a very old relationship between Western occultism and Middle Eastern occultism. So
I'm not sure what you mean by this. What's the difference?
Well, basically, according to Masonic legend, even Scottish Rite legend, Rosicrucian legend, the Templars came into contact with Middle Eastern mystics that are known in Freemasonry as the Eastern Mystics. And these are typically identified with the assassins of the Ismaili sect of Shiism. And
the Hashishans.
Pardon?
The Hashishans.
The Hashishim, exactly. So they're called Hashishim because they're eaters of hashish, meaning grass, or in other words, marijuana. They're believed to use marijuana for indoctrination purposes.
Well, hashish, it's a bit more potent.
Yeah. So they were believed to have created mind control assassins. So the long-term legend was that the Templars came into contact with these quote-unquote Eastern mystics and learned their occult doctrines and brought them back to Scotland, where it gave birth to the Scottish Rite tradition. So the modern quote-unquote Islamic terrorists are actually have their origins in Freemasonry as well, and it seems to be part of an attempt to try to recreate this a modern version of this legend. So
you're saying we have right now modern Hashishan.
Exactly, modern mind control terrorists, and basically this is particularly the Salafi groups. So Al Qaeda is included, ISIS is included. They're all Salafists, and they derive from.
Oh, wait a minute! What's a Salafist?
So basically, there's a very influential reform movement in Islam today. So, Islam is recognized as the fastest growing religion in the world, but unfortunately, a lot of the converts today are being converted, particularly to what's called the Salafi sect. And this is an interpretation of Islam which is being largely funded by Saudi Arabia.
And what does this interpretation? What is the end result of this interpretation?
The end result is basically to hijack Islam and to create an antithesis of Islam. So, traditionally, Islam is based on a very rigorous doctrinal tradition or legalistic tradition. There's four. It's divided into four legal schools, and there are very strict procedures that are supposed to be followed whenever a scholar or a leader or anyone attempts to try to derive laws and apply rulings to varying situations. So the Salafists came along and they said, all this is rubbish. It's all
right. Heck no, we're into violence.
Yeah, so basically they said, we don't need to follow those rules anymore. We can go back to the sources ourselves and reinterpret it. We don't need to go. Basically, they're saying that we don't need to rely on the experts. We're smart enough ourselves to figure things out on our own. So basically, this is how they've completely rewritten the laws of Islam. This is
now before we get lost. Yeah. We have two more books to go.
Right.
The Fascist International, is that the Salafi?
Well, indirectly, the Salafists are part of the Fascist International. So essentially, groups like the Salafis and Muslim Brotherhood, the CIA, largely what the Fascist International is an international network of fascists that have been maintained by the CIA during the Cold War as a bulwark against the influence of communism. So even though Islamic terrorists are not fascist in the strict sense of the word, they are essentially Islamofascists, and they have been used in a similar manner by the CIA to offset communist influence in the Middle East. And
are they aware of this?
Pardon?
Are they aware that the CIA are exploiting them for their own purposes?
Well, I'm not sure. I think there's varying degrees of complicity. So I think at the very lowest level, the guys that are in the streets in Syria that are doing the actual fighting are probably completely unaware that they're being used as tools. But I think as you move up the ladder, there's different degrees of complicity. And that's a model that goes all the way back to the Hashishim. So the Hashishim they are considered to have developed the degree system of Freemasonry, where there was 9 degrees, and at the lowest degree, the recruit was brought in and believed that he was actually fighting for God, fighting a true jihad.
We hear that from everyone today, that they're fighting for true jihad.
Yeah.
Now, the concept of jihad seems to have taken over, at least, I would say the media, except it's way bigger than that. You got You got young boys going to kill themselves without any thought whatsoever to their own well-being. You have this pretty deep now.
Yeah, exactly. So this is all a result of Salafism. So Salafism is built on a rejection of Islamic tradition and Islamic scholarly tradition. So basically, they abandon any kind of approach that had been adopted and developed through centuries of scholarship, and decided that they can reinterpret now the laws in their own manner. And this is how they've come up. This is how they've.
You're saying it's not their manner. Ultimately, we're going backwards now to the Fascist International. It's
Right.
in their manner.
Yes, basically, it's there's an effort, a neoconservative effort to create a clash of civilization. So it's been necessary to develop this brand of Islam in order to create an opposing element in the Islamic world. So it's been
All right, I'm going to ask this. Now, it's kind of obvious, at least on the surface, what the opposing elements are.
Yeah.
They're migrants all through Europe, is the one side, and there are the fighters who are not migrants all through Europe on their side. I guess that's the war, no? Did I lose you? Oh, don't tell me I lost you. Something is amiss here. Nick, can you help me here? I don't hear David anymore. All right, folks, I'm going to wing it. And this is after a very, very good start, but somewhere along the line, I lost David Livingstone, and my producer has got to get us back together somehow. David, are you there? Oh, I had to get up to look at my screen. I did lose. All right, I'm gonna wing it. David, one way or another, get back to me. Folks, I've got this horrible thing called sciatica. It's basically a disc that has split and is pinching. Look, call dropped. Nick, please get David back. And I'm not sure why this call was dropped. In short, I've had to do this phone call lying down. I couldn't even sit in my chair. But what he's saying is that what we see today as the ultimate clash of civilization, which again would be those Arabs willing to die and those Arabs wandering around Europe as migrants. This is what I see anyways. Now, in short, until one way or another David comes back, my details are, all my books are at lulu.com. That's www.lulu.com. In case of this, I'd go back to my sources where they did the same thing. They turned Jews into throat-to-throat enemies. And, well, that's my book, Save Israel. That's my book, oh my goodness, Bye Bye Gaza. Oh my goodness gracious. I've got so many books now, 9 of them. I can't think which is most appropriate, but you get them all at lulu.com. That's www.lulu.com. There's a search box right in my last name, Chamish, Chamish, and you will hook up with me. Next, I have a website. I'm dealing with my webmaster as best I can I think we have a site, but it's. Look, I'm not technical, and people who are technical have got to take over some functions because I can't. Now, I'm hoping David has put together a way to make the site more accessible. And if so, well, you just go to www.barrychamish.com. And look at that, David Livingstone, my screen says call failed. Whatever is going on, well, we're trying again. Oh, what a weird way to do a show. Folks, I wrote this article 2 days ago, and what it did, call failed again. And here's David Livingstone again. What had happened is I wrote the article based, let's just say this, the Jew haters and the Jews at some point don't have to despise each other. Right now they do. The problem is those authorities attacking Israel sometimes more than often hate Israel. And I wrote an article, I said just straight off, folks, just because people are trying to wreck us and destroy us are saying these things doesn't make them wrong. And that's the problem. We've got to face up to it. We lost a third of our people. We might lose another third if we don't watch out. And if we don't mature and face reality, I'm afraid. Oh, am I afraid? Just leave it at that. And that's what this article was. Now, I'm not even sure David put it up on the website. I would like to believe he did. But if not, well, what can I say? Have been doing this amazing work, and really don't for a second underestimate what goes into writing an article. You finally find out when you don't have a back. Well, that's what happened to me. I didn't have a back, and I wrote an article, and I got it out there all without a back. The fact is, it can be done under great, great duress. Now, what is going on? My best friend during my most formative research years, that would be Joel Bainman, died too young, died at 53, won't go through with it. His son is in Florida, about 100 miles from me, and I'm going to try and see him tomorrow. But I also attempt to have a personal life, and frankly, it ain't easy. But if it works, then Joel, I did it for you. With this back and with everything else, I did it for you, Joel. That's my personal life. Now, right now, I see from my screen that something is very wrong with either Nick Arthur's connection to David Livingstone or David Livingstone's connection to Nick Arthur, because he is trying over and over and can't get through. And, well, what can a person do who's trying to run a radio show who had a great guest when I see the great guest is trying to get through? But folks, well, we now have a phone line ringing. Let's see if someone answers. David,
Hello?
did you answer? David?
I'm here.
Oh, gosh, oh man, I hate winging it. It's not my nature to wing it. Now we have to get back to where we were. All right, in short, we have got a new kind of Islam that is dividing the old Islam, causing two separate movements. One is of migrants in Europe, the other are of jihadists, so far ruling Syria and Iraq and a lot of other places in smaller numbers. Well, What do you make of all this?
Well, it's not dividing the migrants and the jihadists. It's basically developing a strain of Islam which is having growing, or has had a growing influence, hopefully a waning influence now, as more and more information is starting to come out. Apparently the media in Egypt is exposing a lot of information these days about the relationship between the Muslim Brotherhood, the Freemasonry, and CIA, and so on and so forth. So
who is revealing this?
This is what I hear about the media in Egypt has been revealing information more and more. It's what friends have been telling me, reporting about what's happening in Egypt. I mean, in general, this is the reality is that all this is funded by Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia works at the behest of the CIA.
Now, this is good because Ulrich said the same thing. Why do you say this?
Sorry?
Why do you conclude that Saudi Arabia is funding all this?
Well, that's just a long-term relationship. The state of Saudi Arabia was created by the British. And it was created in 1932.
Israel was, like Jordan was.
Yeah.
All right. British colonialism created both Israel and Saudi Arabia.
Yes, exactly. So, and it was created in 1932. In 1933, oil concessions were granted to the Rockefeller Standard Oil. So it's a very intimate relationship and very necessary relationship. The bulk of the, I think it's as much as a third of the world's resources are found in Saudi Arabia. So it's a pretty crucial relationship. It's also a relationship that goes back. I mean, it goes back to that time, but it begins with what's called the Safari Club, and even the oil crisis.
I've never heard of either of them. If you could help us out here.
Yeah. So basically.
No. What are they?
What's that? The oil crisis?
No, I think I heard Safari Club.
The Safari Club, yeah. So.
Well, what is that?
So the Safari Club, after the oil crisis, the price of oil in the world had about quadrupled in just a number of months or years. Sorry, I don't remember the details, but the price basically quadrupled. So the Saudis were flush with cash. All of a sudden, they were washing money that was from the oil fields. So the deal was that this was soon after Watergate. So the CIA and American government's hands were tied. They weren't able to do anything without passing it by Congress. So the CIA made a deal with Saudis that the Saudis agreed to fund American covert operations on behalf of the CIA, so that as a way of bypassing Congress. And so that basically is the deal that began the kind of funding that has been taking place ever since.
How do you get to be a member of the Safari Club?
Well, it was not really that kind of a club. I think that's how they named themselves, but it was basically, just a number of individuals from the American government and the Saudi government, and I can't remember.
Oh, we have a break where we'll talk about people with enormous amount of money basically get to rule on our lives, right?
Right. Exactly.
Alrighty. Folks, this has been, as usual, technologically a nightmare for me, but we're getting a show done, and it's turning out pretty good, I think. By the way, I'm off next week. See you in 3 minutes.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen, There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.
The book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the Left Behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
Hey, folks, this is Barry Chamish. I'm lying down and talking to David Livingstone. David, you have, let's say a minute. You did your first 2 books. Get your second, third, and fourth book out. Plug it, and we'll go back to you. Okay?
Okay, thanks. So my two last recent books. The first was Black Terror, White Soldiers, Islam, Fascism, and the New Age. And my most recent is Transhumanism, The History of a Dangerous Idea. All my books can be found on my website.
You left out two.
Well, the first 2 we mentioned earlier, which was The Dying God, The Hidden History of Western Civilization, and Terrorism and the Illuminati, A 3,000-Year History.
Well, what's the one that you read and, enjoyed immensely?
Great.
What's that?
What's that?
The name of the book? The name
which one?
The ones we didn't plug.
The most recently is Transhumanism, The History of a Dangerous Idea.
Very good. And the one before that?
Black Terror, White Soldiers.
Wonderful. We got your books. Now, how do we get them?
Everything about me and my books is on my website, which is conspiracyschool.com.
All right, folks. It is conspiracyschool.com, but if you missed that, we are up and archived for a week at libertyarchives.com. And final reminder, next week is Pesach. I'm not doing a show. Nick will find a way to do a show for me. All right, now let's go back to what's synarchism?
Synarchism is the true ideology of the conspiracy. So there's a deliberate manufacture of conspiracy culture in the United States, and it's intended to shift the focus to a supposed threat of communism, and usually a Jewish conspiracy threat. But the reality is that the real agenda that they're pursuing is an occult philosophy called synarchism,
which is
it's an ideology, an occult ideology that dates back to an author. His name is Saint Yves Delbecq, who was a French occult philosopher of the late 1800s. But it dates back before him to an occult tradition known as Martinism. And Martinism was an occult tradition that developed in the late 1800s and was really the real occult power behind most of the proliferation of occult movements in that period. And even
what did it believe and attest to? What was Martinism?
Mainly Martinism was Kabbalism and the thought of Jacob Boehme. And Jacob Boehme is really the guy who was the real underlying influence behind most of modern occultism. And we've talked about this many times before, but really the real source of Jacob Boehme is Isaac Luria. So Boehme was basically a Christianized version of the thought of Isaac Luria, and that penetrated into most occult.
All right, what did Isaac Luria believe in?
I believed in the evolution of that man evolving towards becoming God. That man is God and evolves to come to know that he is God.
Now, of course, Isaac Luria was a Jewish scholar. What you're saying, I'm not sure, is that bad? What if we do evolve when we become a god? What happens?
Well, it's not possible.
All right.
And so, basically, it's the ultimate arrogance to suggest that this is what they believe. They believe that there is no other God outside of ourselves. We are God. Man is God, and we make our own destiny. We make our own rules. So you can throw the Torah out. You can throw the Bible out, the Quran out. We don't need it. We can make our own rules. That's what they ultimately think.
And somehow Fascist International is allied to synarchism.
Yes.
How? Oh, don't tell me I lost you again. Folks, this is getting a little spooky. Just in the middle of a really good conversation, we lost David Livingstone again. Oh, folks. Believe me when I tell you I hate winging it. I like talking with people. They bring out more of me than I do of them. All right, folks, I'm going to plug myself last time. I'll go over what I think my major points were going to be with David Livingstone. And unless he comes back in time, and I'm hoping he will miss, what is a fascist like Gladio? I never heard of Gladio, so I was going to ask him that. It's all written and ready. And he claims that ISIS seems to be the new Gladio. I had no idea what that means, so I was going to hit him on that. And here's the big one. All right, he thinks that Trump, just by running, by the way, signals a major shift to the right in American politics, which has been building up till Reagan. And, well, in short, it's linked to neo-Nazis. Now, I have my own ties, okay, and they extend into the. Now, don't get me wrong. I couldn't care less that he's running. I think it's abomination and all this kind of stuff. But he's got a daughter who converted to Orthodox Judaism. She's very proud of it, and I don't think she'd like to hear that her father is linked to an internal network of neo-Nazis, and I was going to hit him on. I'm giving you all well, this was my planned show. Now, so far, I don't see David Livingstone. And by the way, folks, you're always very personal with me, so I'm getting up from my sciatica to stare at a computer screen, and if not, I may have to wing it. But there, I gave you what I was going to give you. Look, people, it's not my fault whatever happened, but what did happen this week is that I tried donating. I think what my guests are hinting at is a real tragedy coming up in Israel, and I'm desperately worried about it expanding into something because people don't know the game that's being played there, and unfortunately it's been going on and it's been disastrous. David, are you there?
I'm back.
All right, I'm sitting at my desk. I winged it again. What do you think is happening?
Just I got interrupted by another call, and then I somehow lost your connection.
Somehow.
Should be clear again. Just trying to finagle something since our power went out over here.
All right, let's go. I actually gave away my best points, and I'm sitting down in agony. So let's take this. First of all, I'm not sure who Gladio is. Who's Gladio?
Gladio is what's called a stay-behind unit. After World War II.
Not a person, it's a unit.
No, exactly.
All right, explain this one.
Yeah, so after World War II, the CIA and NATO decided to set up what are called stay-behind units in various countries around Europe. They followed the example of French resistance, who were able to rise up and fight the Nazi occupation from within. So they figured that in the event of a Russian invasion of any particular country in Europe, they could mobilize an internal resistance against that invasion. So what they did is they recruited networks of fascist cells across Europe and equipped them, trained them to resist a potential Soviet invasion. But what they ended up doing was actually serving for various forms of destabilization, primarily against any kind of perceived communist influence. So
were they paid?
I'm not sure how they were paid, but they were well organized in one way or the other. So they went under many different names.
Why were they busted?
Why were they busted?
Why weren't they?
Why weren't they?
Yeah.
Because this is the kind of stuff that happens at the very highest level. It's almost impossible to.
In other words, they can get away with creating a group, an active group who's opposed to your civilization as it exists then.
Well, this is, like I said, it happens at the very highest levels. I think we have to understand how, when there's collusion between the media, the police, the army, the Secret Service, judicial system, it's possible to get away with just about anything. So what happened is that I can't remember exactly how it was exposed, but basically Gladio was exposed in Italy, and it went through all kinds of lengthy court battles and was, to a large extent, exposed. Some of its members were convicted and jailed, and a lot of it was exposed, but not completely. It wasn't followed up on in other parts of Europe.
But they were fascists.
The only countries. Pardon?
They were fascists. They weren't communists. They were fascists.
They were fascists. They were virulent anti-communists.
Okay.
And basically the strategy was to carry out acts of terrorism to be blamed on the communists. They did so. There was one particular case in Belgium, or what they call the Bloody 80s, and I can't remember what the name of the fascist organization was that was involved there, but basically they perpetrated terrorist acts, killing incidents in civilians in places like grocery stores and other public places that were blamed on the communists to try to undermine their influence. So basically what's happening now, ISIS, or however these acts of terror are taking place in Europe now, is basically just a continuation of Gladio. So before, which is communism, now is... Pardon?
Well, now, look, people think that it would serve the interests, anti-Muslim interests. In fact, that's not exactly the way it's unfolding.
Well, the reality is that the Islamic world is in a state of complete collapse. So the Islamic world, the last Islamic power fell in 1924 with the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, and that was the last consolidated power in the Islamic world. So it's completely disintegrated. It's incapable of mobilizing any kind of threat towards the West. But the kind of showdown that they're trying to create to orchestrate the development, the political developments that they are trying to pursue, it's necessary for them to invent a radical faction in the Islamic world.
Why did the Pope fly to Syria and bring back a bunch of migrants and say that...
I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay,
I'm not sure.
Version. Why did he do this most dangerous precedent?
I'm not sure. There's a strange dual plot that seems to be happening, where there's this orchestrated influx of migrants, and at the same time the perpetration of these terrorist acts. Because part of what's happening is that part of what's happening is that they are creating anti-immigrant sentiment, which feeds into fascist, the fascist agenda. Basically, it feeds fascist authority in Europe. They're trying to build up fascist authority in Europe, and to do so, as it's always been, fascist. What's really interesting here is that the guy who's the main philosopher behind the strategy is a guy named Carl Schmitt. And Carl Schmitt he's known as the crown jurist of the Third Reich, and he's an unapologetic Nazi. He refused to reform. He refused to deny his Nazi ideology and the denazification proceedings after or during the Nuremberg trials. But despite that, he continues to be enormously influential. Right up until
he's alive.
Right up until our time. He had a particular influence on Leo Strauss. Leo Strauss is basically otherwise a Jewish philosopher who nevertheless uses Carl Schmitt as an important ideologue. Another one is Alexander Koyev, and Alexander Koyev is one of the chief synarchists of modern times. He's one of the architects as well of the European Union, and one of the leading, or he's regarded as the leading interpreter of Hegel in our time. So this is the network that works together. These are the architects of the clash of civilizations, and their belief, their fascist, Marxist, synarchist belief, is based on the idea that society is most easily manipulated through the manufacture of an enemy.
Well, that's
so this
for
is the
sure,
basis
but
of,
the enemy still, you have to fund somebody. This has to be very costly.
yes, of course, but they have all the means at their disposal. So this is how. So like what I'm saying, going back to the whole so-called immigrant crisis, fascism is based on a fear of another. They believe in maintaining a constant opposition to an enemy. That a society, according to them, is defined by us and them. And so Nazism was no different. Nazism was defined on the Aryan and the Jew, or the Aryan and the non-Aryan. And it basically, its soil is xenophobic thinking. And so today, the way they're opening the way for the broader acceptance of a fascist ideology is by creating this fear.
By having the Pope fly to Syria and bring back migrants?
No, by creating a fear of a local migrant population who could be undermining the fabric of their society.
Again, that's not what the Pope did. He said these.
That's not what the Pope did. But in one way, the Pope is playing into this opposition, right? It's all the only way that it could seem to be a legitimate threat is if you can present the degree to which the support for immigration is strong, and that's what I think maybe either the Pope is doing consciously, or that's how he is being presented. So if the Pope is supporting the influx of immigrants, this only gives further fuel for the fascists to say, "Hey, wait a minute, there's some major agenda here to have us."
This Kraut lady, Merkel, by allowing 2 million. I mean, you don't want to. If I were a Muslim, I wouldn't want to be in Germany. I've got my own memories of a place. It's not going to be good for you.
No. But yeah, so I mean, this is what's happening. So this fascist international, which was behind the Gladio networks through most of the Cold War, is still alive and well, and it's evolving, and it's now evolving into a new right in Europe. So most of these fascist groups that are using the pretext of this immigration crisis are derived from the original networks of the fascist international. So you have groups like Le Pen. I always pronounce his name Le Pen in France. Alain de Benoit. There's Geert Wilders in Holland.
You forgot Jean Drapeau.
And most importantly, Alexander Dugin.
All right, no sense of humor about your background, huh? All right.
Yeah. So that's what's happening, right? That this fascist international, which has been maintained by the NATO and the CIA for the last 50 years, has been nursed by the CIA all the time, and has been used in preliminary measures over all this time, are now starting to slowly gain more influence. They've been a fringe factor in European politics, but now with the advent or the supposed advent of Islamic terrorism and immigrant terrorists, they are now able to try to generate more broader and broader support, and it's becoming an increasing problem. It's the same thing that the Nazis did to come to power, and I'm not sure how far these guys are going to go. I mean, their goal is power equivalent to the Nazis, but I'm not sure. If that's actually part of the.
All right, you're putting things in perspective for me. No, I'm seeing it. I'm gonna end, by the way, with one controversial. My show got shook up by our constant interruptions, but we still came out okay. But what you added, now here is you, that Trump running signals a major shift to the right, and a link to an internal network of neo-fascists and Nazis, neo-Nazis. Now that's going to be a mighty big shock to his Orthodox Jewish daughter, who would be denying this vehemently.
Yeah.
Dive in.
Well,
his
you
daughter
know, I mean,
converted to Judaism, the religious kind. All right, what's she going to think about this?
I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. Because who knows what kind of Judaism she converted to.
I know exactly what kind. I know people in her country. I know exactly what kind. I am in contact with people who know her through her synagogue. I'm not sure what kind you mean, but I know the kind she is.
I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. So, there's been a long-term close collaboration between Sabbatianism and the things that we're talking about.
This isn't Sabbatianism. This is Orthodox. You got to recognize the difference. They're different.
Absolutely. So, so I don't know. I don't know how it's going to work out. But
have you got my book, Shabtai Tzvi, Labor, Zionism, and the Holocaust?
Pardon?
Do you have my book, Shabtai Tzvi, Labor, Zionism, and the Holocaust?
Yes, of course. Of course. Your articles are what introduced me to Rabbi Antelman, and then discovering the Sabbatian tradition in the first place.
Rabbi Antelman was not Sabbatean. He was Orthodox.
Yes, I know that. He wrote To Eliminate the Opiate. That's the 2-volume work that exposes the Sabbatians.
You got
He also exposed. He exposed the Sabbatian role in developing both conservative and Reform Judaism in Reform Judaism, which is very influential in the United States.
He certainly did expose that. We're in a pickle, all right? And there are very few people who see through the pickle. He was one of them.
Of course. Yeah, that's right. So what's happening to Judaism is very close to what's happening to Islam.
All right, folks, you heard it first. You sort that one out. We are archived at libertyarchives.com. Now, this show really was interrupted and threw me off my rhythm, but I think we stumped our guest, David Livingstone. He doesn't understand that Trump may be just, he may actually be proud of his daughter who converted to Orthodox religious Judaism. David?
That's to be seen. It's to be seen what's going to happen. What's important is what Trump comes from.
All right, I got him stumped, folks.
Trump's mentor was Roy Cohn. Roy Cohn was involved with...
He was Nixon's front-hand man during the 50s. Folks, we gotta sign off. We had an interrupted show, but I think a good one. Next week is Pesach. I won't be here. Good night, all. Thank you, David.
Okay, thanks for having me.
I am.